Did no one tell you that everything you're describing is exactly what it feels like to have a business? None of us know what we're doing. We are figuring this out as we go.
Everybody, what's up and welcome to this week's episode of It Takes Grit. I'm going a little bit giddy right now because I have the one and only Lindsey Schwartz from the Powerhouse Women podcast on this podcast. Lindsey, how are you doing today?
I'm so great. I'm still buzzing from our conversation we just had for my podcast. So this is a double fun day.
Double fun day. We actually need to do a lunch date, a proper lunch date where we can all socialize together. So Lindsey and I got to meet each other at an event last year, and I was just blown away by hearing her on stage. And I feel like I've been stalking you on Instagram for a long time. I feel like I'm just a stalker. Now I'm actually getting to have a real conversation with you. So super cool to have you here on the podcast. So let's just get started right away. I want to dive into your story. Who are you and how did you get to where you are today? Because, the transition that you've had, especially this year, which we're really going to tap into. But I want you to just share people, how you got to where you are right now and creating this incredible business.
Yeah, well, no pun intended. It took some grit. I mean, truly. And, we really kind of had this similar conversation when you shared your story, but I related so much to that notion of, people had looked on the outside. They would have seen what they thought was a life that someone had it all together. And at the time, this was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I had grown a business to the point where I had been able to leave my job. I still have, I shouldn't say had, that makes it sound past tense. I have an amazing husband. I have this beautiful little puppy. I really looked on the outside like I had a lot together. And what people couldn't see was that I was operating at about 70% of my full potential. And the truth is I could get away with it because I could produce results at 70%. I could get awards, recognition. I made okay money, but deep down, I knew that there was actually more. And it's not even about the money. I really think deep down what was feeling so restless was the fact that I had more to give and I wasn't using that potential. But I was scared. I was petrified of what other people would think. I was afraid of finding that maybe I wasn't as great as I thought I was. When I think back to what kept me in that safety zone of playing at 70% and just getting, okay results for me, I think what it really boiled down to was the fact that I really hated to be uncomfortable. And it was comfortable to give 70%, get okay results. And at the end of the day, I think that only works for a while. Either it starts to deteriorate your physical health. I think that sometimes happens. Or you reach this point that I reached where I was enough. I just couldn't take it any longer. I couldn't take any more. I got so sick of myself setting goals or having these big plans that then I never followed through on. And again, most people would have looked at my life at that time and said, well, why do you want more? You already have so much. You already have this beautiful life. But when you know that there is more for you to give, you really can't ignore that forever. It'll either come back to haunt you or eat away at you, or you just get over yourself and you go all in. So for me, that all in moment was I had this opportunity kind of presented to me to write a book. And I know the process that it takes to write a book. And it was this divine moment of, now, to be clear, someone didn't come to me and say, hey, we'd like to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars to write this book. They said, you should pay us. You should pay us, join our program, write this book, in order to get your name out there as an entrepreneur. And there was something in me. I think there's these moments in our lives when we have a choice to make. We can either choose to continue going as the person we always were, or we can make a choice that literally sets us on a different trajectory. And there was something that day. It was a day when I was just over it. And I remember being so scared because I had this little blog for 3 years, a health and fitness blog. And I published one article per year. I had 3 articles on this blog. And here I was who am I to write a book? Who am I to do this? And it was in that moment that I literally stepped back and I said, it was like I could see my whole future. Like, you always do this, Lindsey. You know, that podcast equipment that's collecting dust in the closet because you never started that podcast. You keep saying you want to be used for something greater. And then when the opportunity presents itself, you think of a reason not to. And it was literally like my higher self that day was like, are you just going to freaking like jump, or is this like how we're going to play this? And I'll never forget that phone call. It was someone I knew and trusted. So like I trusted that this program was legit. But I remember saying, okay, here's my money. And that was a big key. I invested an uncomfortable amount for me in having someone hold me accountable and guide me. And the program started in 2 days. I didn't have time to overthink it. And for the next year, I continued to get over myself. I continued to get out of my own way. I mean, you know, like really the grit it truly takes to finish writing a book. A lot of people started, and actually 12 other people started writing books with me. And I'm still the only one from that original program that finished. And it's grown into a multiple 6, almost 7-figure business, annual sold out event, a top podcast. We have an international community. And I say that not to boast. I actually say that because I want you to hear, I almost missed out on all that because I was so committed to my comfort zone and so committed to like wanting to make sure it was okay for everyone around me if I like did this big, bold thing. And I am so grateful for that moment that I chose something different.
I think that's such an important thing that you just put some fear in people, right? And in a fear in a good way, because everyone's like, I'm so fearful of doing this thing. I'm like, you should be more fearful of not doing it. Like the actual thought of like, you know, not doing something or not saying yes to it is way more fearful to me. I will look at every single opportunity, whether it's me being nosy or me just like wanting to find out if there's something in there, right? But I feel more fearful of like saying no to something than I do saying yes to something. And I know that story right now is going to make a lot of people go like a big gulp and be like, okay, she's talking directly to me. I need to take action. Why do you think that you were always just going at that 70%? Like what was holding you back? What was stopping you being 100% you? And do you feel like you're 100% right now?
I feel like, so I think the 100% it's where I used to think that was maybe a goal. I think it's a target that moves. Because right now, the zone I'm playing in was like 200% of the girl who started. But you always find that next little level of potential. So I hope I never find 100%, truly. But every day, that's my goal. I think now I look at it more as how can I get up today and give my 100% today? Am I doing something uncomfortable? Am I doing something that challenges me? Or do I feel like I'm kind of coasting? And so back to your question about like what kept me in that 70%, I think it's a mix of things, but I really liked to control the outcome. And the truth is, you don't really get any of the really cool results that you think you want until you leave your comfort zone. You really just don't. I would only set goals that I knew I could achieve. I wanted to have a backup plan for the backup plan for the backup plan. And so it really kind of like, just imagine like the walls kind of closing in on your life and on your potential. You can't see the path you're supposed to take if you try to stand, like imagine your feet planted and you're trying to see step 1000 before you ever want to take that first baby step. And that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for someone to say, if you do this thing, it's definitely going to work out. It's going to be amazing. You're going to be amazing. But the truth is had someone showed me a vision of what it looks like now. So my book actually came out just 3 years ago. That's it. Three years is like a pretty short period of time, considering I spent 33 years like in my own way. And had someone shown me a vision of what it looks like now, I would have been too intimidated. I never would have started, because if you see the full path, it would overwhelm you because you're not that person yet. So I think what I was waiting for was the exact thing I didn't realize. I wasn't supposed to see the whole path. I wasn't supposed to control it because I was going to become a person that, you know, now looking back, I wouldn't have even recognized this version of myself. And that was the part that I had so wrong. I thought I should feel ready. I thought I should feel prepared and have a plan. And plans are great, but usually your plan, the one you created as the person you are right now, is not going to be the plan you actually follow through with, because you're going to evolve into a person who has a whole different plan, and you should.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact where you said like you'll never be at 100% because you right now is like 200% more than what you ever thought was even going to be a thing. So I have, you know, when somebody's really starting out their new business or their new side hustle, their very first Instagram post, they're freaking out over, right? But isn't there a time where you look back a year ago and you're like, why did I post that? Why did I put that edit on it? That looks freaking terrible. What was I doing?
Oh my gosh, so true.
So you're always going to want to improve, like, but you just have to put that first post out. You just have to put that first article out. You just have to put that first step. Why do you think that it's so difficult for people just to do the very first step, which is sometimes the most challenging?
Oh my goodness. I think it's a mix. I think either, and maybe if you're like me, you really are right now controlled, like I was back then, by what other people were going to think. You're afraid of criticism. You're afraid of shining too bright, making someone else uncomfortable. I just had like a whole mix of, I just would rotate between all of them, right? That I was afraid of, and notice that it's never the person you actually want to help. You're not actually worried about the person you know. If you just share that message and share your story, you're going to help someone. No, it was always like, I would get this vision in my mind of like, what will my mom's next door neighbor think of this? Like, this is not someone I'm actually trying to help. And if they get something from it, great. Or if they have a judgment about it, like really, I had to like resolve that for myself. Did I care? And the truth is, and I'm going to share this like massive permission for people who notice that you still really wrestle with people-pleasing tendencies. I always thought that I had to become more like some of the really strong women I admired. I thought I had to just not care what people think. And the truth is, for someone who's maybe wrestling with those feelings, going from I make every decision based on will other people approve to not caring is actually probably not authentic. It probably doesn't feel very good to you. So here's what I want to offer you. The same quality that makes you kind of susceptible to, if you're not careful, you can make decisions or operate putting too much emphasis on what other people think. I bet that's also connected to a really big caring heart that makes you connect with people really easily. So what I noticed and how I've moved through it, because those tendencies still show up, but like they're not even, I used to say like they don't get to sit in the driver's seat. Now they're like hanging onto the bumper on the back of the car. Like they don't even get to be in the car with me. I'll notice those familiar thoughts come up, but then you have to remember, if you're operating in your strength, and you're connecting with people, you're serving people, you're coming from this heart and desire to make an impact, then you're operating from your strength. But the moment I start to just think of like, well, hold on, what's that person gonna think of this post? Or, you know, gosh, is this like, you know, whatever, wherever your mind goes, I almost can't go there anymore because it's just doesn't have the same grip. But the moment you're there, all you have to do is realize like, oh, hold on, I'm just tipping into the unhealthy version of maybe something that's actually your strength. And I want you to ask yourself this really important question. Why am I posting this? Or why am I publishing this blog? Or why am I going live? Is it to impress someone? Or am I out to make an impact? And in that moment, whatever your like intuition tells you is the truth, if you're doing it to impress someone, don't post it. Wait until you're coming from a place of like, I really just want to make an impact. But the moment I remembered that none of it was about me, it was about who I was meant to serve, it really helped to loosen that grip. And I think that in those early stages, it's a lot of, you know, either imposter syndrome, like, who am I to be doing this? But I think all of that's kind of like tied together in this really ugly, like knotted mess. Like think of like when your hair tie gets stuck in your hair, it's like this knotted mess of habits designed to keep you small, and you're just not meant to be small.
Absolutely. And it's like when you really realize, like maybe when one person just replies back to you and says, oh my goodness, like, thank you so much for posting that. I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
That's the first day when you're just like, oh my goodness, like I want to do this more. And you get that confidence to keep on going. But if you never do the post, you're never going to have that one thing that just gives you the confidence or the mindset that you're doing the right thing. I love that. Thank you for sharing and so open and honest. How did you get the idea for your book? Like, how did that happen? Like, what were you like, yes, I'm going to write this, but then how did you decide like what it was going to be about, and how did you format that?
Yeah. So, I was not the person who ever had a book on my bucket list. And I know a lot of my fellow friends who are authors, just that was always something they wanted to achieve. And when I got that phone call from the woman who said, this would be great for you, I said to her, because at the time I was really known for the last 6-7 years for building a fitness brand. I had done fitness competitions. I was growing a nutrition company through a network marketing, or nutrition business through a network marketing company. And she said, this could be really great to establish yourself as an expert. And so after telling her all the reasons, why, oh, no, thanks. Like I had this blog, I'm not really a writer. I said, but here are the fatal or famous last words. But if I did write, what I think I would want to talk about is I have conversations with women every single day, especially growing a network marketing team. You're talking to people about like their big visions, their big dreams. And time after time, women would say either, something to the effect of, oh, I'm really inspired by what you've done. It's so cool. Like you have your own business. I don't know if that's for me. Or, hey, I've always thought of this other thing that I would want to do, or I have this idea. And then without even taking a breath, they would then go on to tell me why they weren't ready. They were scared. They were afraid of what other people were going to think. And every time I kind of sat back and went, hold on, did no one tell you that's everything you're describing is exactly what it feels like to have a business? None of us know what we're doing. We are figuring this out as we go. And every time I was like, really? Did you not know? Like, really, you didn't know that? And I said, I just think we need to have more honesty about what it really looks like to pursue big ideas, to be uncomfortable every day, that it's not the highlight reel of our social media feeds. The real work happens offline, often like stuff that people will never see, not because we're trying to hide it, but just because we're in the work. And I said, I think more women need to hear that side of the story, because they're like, I'll hear these ideas and maybe you hear them too. People sharing these ideas that I'm like, oh yeah, like that needs to exist. Someone needs to do that. And clearly you're getting the idea. I think you're supposed to do it. And I just don't want women, my community is women, but women and men, to miss the opportunity to make the impact they're meant to make. So I said this to her on that phone call. And then, there's this long dramatic pause. And she said, Lindsey, if you don't write that book, who's going to? Now, this is the moment I would love to tell you that like angels started singing and I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an amazing writer. No, the first thing that was about to come out of my mouth was why I wasn't ready, why I wasn't a writer, why I didn't know if I had what it took. And it was that point, and I referenced back to it before, when like my higher self was like, you see, like, here we go again. And I was like, shoot, like, okay, like here it is. Am I going to choose the path that I always chose? Which, to be true, I already knew how that path played out. I already knew what it felt like to have a big idea and not take action on it. And so that's what inspired it. And it ended up becoming really this. So the book is called Powerhouse Woman. And it's how to get out of your own way, fulfill your unique purpose, and live a powerful life, but not from the point of, here are the 10 steps that you need to do to become a powerhouse. It was the book I was writing almost to myself as much as to the readers, to highlight and point us all back to what's already innately within us. Like, yes, you can learn more skills. You should always be developing yourself. But fundamentally, what you need to get started, if you're feeling that nudge to do something, it's already in you. You shouldn't wait to feel ready. You should just start doing it. And then the rest starts to come into place as you do.
So she almost flipped it on you. She flipped your own psychology on you. You're saying, oh, I need to get people to just go out and get out of their own way. And she's like, well, write this book. You're like, no. She's like, well, there you go. This is why you have to write the book.
Checkmate. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, I got you here. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's amazing. And like, sometimes we get into that. You're so right. It's already in you. If you've had the idea, if it's something there, it's already like I like to call like a burning desire that's inside of you that you have had. If it's your idea, if you're coming up with it, like, or if you have the idea that you want to do something, or you want to start a business, or that you want to help people, like, you already have it. Like, you can't tell somebody, that this is like how that you should be. It's something already innate inside of you. So that's amazing and incredible that you're helping so many people. Let's talk about 2020, because
let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's just get it out on the table right here. So I was fascinated because, you know, I wanted to do a big book tour, and I saw that you were doing an event of how to create live events. And that was what you launched in January. How did that happen? And how did you have to pivot? Because it's literally like it took the rug underneath you with that idea and concept that you had. How have you,
Yeah.
did you feel sad? Did you feel confused? Like, how did you feel?
So it was very ironic. Isn't that like when you really just get that the universe, God, whatever your word for it is, has a great sense of humor, it actually brings a lot of lightness to when
Yes.
plans don't go up. So what happened was, so Lori Harder, who I know you know as well, she and I collaborated. We had so many women in our communities who wanted to host events, and we wanted to teach them how to do that, but how to also make them profitable. And so we created this amazing experience called Event Love. We certified 42 women to host their own events in a very like heart-centered, like, but also badass, like I'm going to make a profit, like create a business out of this way. And so we kicked off 2020 with that event, very like second week of the year. And it was incredible. We just both were feeling like live events are like the way of the future. Like if your business isn't doing like connecting with humans live. And then a few short weeks later, the world is like, actually, just kidding. You're not gonna be able to connect with each other in person. So what was cool about that, and you know, here I am living it, because I built a business on. So after I wrote my book, then I had, instead of a book launch event, I actually turned it into an event, kind of like inspirational event about how to help other women get out of their own way. So we were planning our 4th annual, biggest ever Powerhouse Women Conference for September. And here, you know, I had this, you know, we just supported this group of women to plan and really create their events for 2020. And I don't believe anything happens by accident. I actually believe that we created that community and that started that conversation for a reason, because then we got to support these women. I mean, of course, at first, I remember even thinking like, oh, I'll be fine by September. Like all this will be over by September. Like my event will be great. Until then, it started to become clear that that wasn't the case. So both with that group, which we've stayed in touch with and continued to like mentor both formally and informally, but then with groups women that I mentor, you know, I remember kind of this pivotal moment right when it was very clear that, okay, this is going to kind of shake up our world, right? Businesses are closing. We're not really sure on the timeline. And going back to what I was saying earlier, I love control. I love to have a plan. I love to know. And I remember getting on this call with my mastermind group, so the group that I lead. And I think sometimes when we're in a position of leadership, and you've spoken to this too, you don't have a choice. You don't get to like choose whether you want to wallow in self-pity or if you're going to show up and step up. And so I was like, look, these women need me. I've got to find it in me, and then I've got to help them believe it too. And this word kind of like downloaded to me, or whatever you want to say. Like I was on this call and just really saying to them like, yeah, okay, plans are going to change this year. Probably all of your business plans. Like we just finished mapping out these beautiful goals. I need you to like release the attachment of that. And we're going to stand in this space of possibility, and we're going to reimagine this entire year. And this word reimagine almost became our motto for 2020. Anytime we like found ourselves, okay, but and I really want to have this live event. Like, oh, I just finished like the stage design concept. It was going to be so beautiful. Anytime I really found myself grasping on to what was supposed to be, I wasn't standing in the possibility of what could be. And, you know, so we just really created this context to give ourselves a tool to go back to whenever, and it definitely happens like still on a daily basis, whenever it's like, oh, but that plan that I had was really going to be so epic. And then giving me the chance to stand from, okay, well, if not that, then it's got to be something better. And really like looking for and believing for better, different, but better. And we eventually realized it wasn't going to be possible to have, 500 plus women in a room. And we decided to pivot and do a virtual experience, but not just like a, like you and I on a Zoom call right here, I really had this vision of being able to create an experience that gave women that same feeling of connection, inspiration, encouragement that they get at a live event. And I know yours was so epic too. I think it's really challenged all of us to reinvent what we thought was possible, even virtually. But what happened was we had women tune in from Ghana, Africa, Dominican Republic, India, all over Europe. And it really made me, as we started to like create this community that was all of a sudden now so much more accessible to women around the world, I realized, like, had I never been forced to reimagine, I would have missed the chance to include women in this conversation who were craving it. You know, if I'd stayed really attached to my vision of, okay, this event happens live and it's only in Phoenix, Arizona, and I guess we'll just wait till next year. Like who would I have missed the chance to impact someone who really needed to hear this message, especially this year? So it looked a lot different. And it looked a whole lot different than I thought. But that word reimagine has really been my, just my motto throughout this entire year. And I'm gonna keep it. I should probably like get it tattooed somewhere, because truthfully, I know this year has underlined how little we have control, but we never did before anyway. It was just all an illusion that we had control. So it really showed me that I'm infinitely capable of reimagining, of like pivoting when necessary, of stepping up and being a leader for myself and others. And I wouldn't have gotten to see that had I not been forced to endure what is 2020 so far.
And I think that's so amazing that you just embraced the change and embraced the fact that, okay, we're going to do a live event. I mean, you just launched a business to teach people how to do in-person events. Like, what are the chances? You have to say it's, you have to laugh or cry. Think
Right.
about this. Those of you who are listening, Lindsey in January launched a business of how to teach people how to do in-person events. And the universe has a very great way of testing us, and just actually creating something more. So anybody out there who's struggling, that's like, I had this job and then I lost it, and I was doing this. It's like, it happens to everybody and at every single level. And the only difference between somebody who then, makes it is that mindset, is that switch and knowing how to pivot. And how long did you feel sorry for yourself? Did you feel like you'd taken on like you had a responsibility for those people? Like, did you have a time period? I mean, I had 24 hours where I was like, what the hell am I doing? But like,
right.
Was there a period where you were like, oh shit?
Yeah. So there were these moments, and I remember the first one was, I'm not qualified to lead other people through this. I've not been through it myself. Like, who am I? And then again, looking around and being like, well, guess what? You're the only one. They have trusted you, they've invested in you, so you're going to find it within yourself. So that was one like that. Imposter syndrome, I think, is something I've just become friends with, because that's usually when I know I'm growing the most, is when I'm like, I feel totally unqualified for this, so game on. And then there was a moment I remember talking to my mentor and saying, okay, shoot me straight. Are we going to be able to have an event in September? And we played through all the scenarios, right? Okay, what happens if we hold on to the hope of it? And, what are events even going to look like, et cetera? And there was definitely a moment, I would probably say 24 hours, where I really just let myself mourn kind of like the loss of this plan that I had. But again, like, I love to do this exercise where then I'll let myself play out in my mind. So, okay, if I just keep having this pity party for another week, like, is it going to change anything? No. Is it going to make me feel any better? No. Am I going to come up with creative ideas? No. So I am pretty quick to move on, but I also have to honor the real feelings. And I think that's important for all of us, to honor when something is an expectation that, has fallen short, or something we were really excited about that doesn't happen. But usually when I play out the end game of that in my mind, I'm like, I'm just gonna get back to feeling on purpose again, because that's where I feel the best, and that making that choice in that moment. So I don't usually let a pity party last more than a day either.
Do you think that the Lindsey 10 years ago would have reacted the same way, or have you grown so much in 10 years? How would you have reacted 10 years ago? Because I don't know how I would react.
Seriously. Well, I think 10 years ago, gosh, let me even go back there. Well, first of all, the thought of me even having an event 10 years ago probably wasn't going to happen. But, I think what I would have done is I would have looked for everyone else's validation instead of trusting my own intuition of just kind of knowing like, okay, this isn't going to happen. And I for sure would have like allowed myself to stay in the feelings, like those disempowered feelings, not realizing that I had control. And that, that's the biggest gift any of us can give ourselves, is like finding that ability and really learning it, the ability to change your state, to change how you feel, your emotions based on what you're thinking about. So I for sure would have stayed in that muck a whole lot longer.
That's so important when you say change your state. That's one thing that I really learned about 7 years ago was like, change your state, change your state. And I didn't quite understand what was being like taught to me at the time, because it's a new concept. And every time that we're learning something new, it's going to be a time to adapt. But I understand what that means now. It's like, I can get stressed, right? But it now lasts about 5 seconds, but it's like, change your state. You just know how to do it. But that definitely takes time and growth. So don't beat yourself up right now. If it's taking you 5 hours to change your state, just keep working on yourself. So, wow, that's an amazing.
This is so, and here's like another example too of how we're always growing. We're always learning new tools. So I've heard and really, I feel like I've really lived that concept for the last couple of years since I learned it. But then I still find myself getting, the best word I can use it is like anxious. Like I just feel feelings of like anxiety in my body. And I was listening to something recently. I think it was like Dr. Joe Dispenza, but I learned a tool that's really been helping. So maybe for you, if you don't resonate with the change your state conversation, what I do is I notice when I'm feeling those feelings. I was like feeling it earlier today, like overwhelmed, stress over like something that, I have coming up this week. And I paused and I said, and this is the tool that I use. I say, that's not very loving to me. It's not very loving to me to like be thinking these thoughts that are leading to this stress. And funny enough, I don't know, because like I always say that like my husband is amazing. And like if he'll ever say something like negative about himself, I stop him and I say, hey, that's my best friend you're talking about. But I do it for him, but I don't do it for myself. So now I've found myself when I am experiencing anything I don't really want to be feeling in my body, and I really notice it in my body, I'll like pause. And I heard him say this on this talk, and it stuck with me that like, that's just not very loving to myself in that moment. I don't know, that like rocked my world, and I've been using it all the time.
That's beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing. I think that's, we get that like anxiousness in ourselves, and then we beat ourselves up for being anxious, and then we get mad. I don't know if you, like, I used to have like crazy anxiety attacks, and I would get like, I would lose it. And especially if I was with my partner, then I would get mad at the fact that I got mad. Then we're 2 hours in. So now I'm 2 hours in, I'm more mad than when I started. And then I'm so stuffed up myself that I've now ruined the whole morning. So now I can't let it go. Can't let it go. So I get even more mad at myself. And I'm not mad at even, I can't even remember what happened at the beginning.
Right.
Pissed off at myself for reacting that way. And you literally beat yourself up. And then all of a sudden the whole day's gone. And you've lost it. So I love that technique about just saying to yourself, just allowing yourself to give yourself some love. So thank you so much for sharing. I can see you like, I need to share this with some other people. This is definitely going to help because it's been helping you.
I know.
What have you got coming up this week that you're, that's happening, that's making you feel maybe.
Oh gosh. So I don't know about anyone else, but this is what I like when I talk about like being able to play at 70%, when I was just sharing that earlier, part of it is because my 70% really does look like other people's 100, and not everybody's, but some people's, right? So it was very tricky to stay there. And the more I've really tapped into just how much I really can handle, I find that I actually operate best when I'm like fully used up. Like fully, like all I'm being used. So I'm hosting a mastermind retreat next week. And we also I just wrapped up my virtual live event, and we're buying a cabin and refinancing our house. So it was like people wanting all this information from me that I was trying to be fully present on my podcast earlier. So it was that moment so what I used in that moment was to say, no one will die. That's my other one, is like, will anyone die if I don't send this, loan officer? Because she had like emailed and called, and I was like, I got to get it to her. And I was like, nope, I'm actually not going to do that until after my calls today. And I just gave myself that permission, and I reminded myself that no one will actually die. No humans will be harmed in the process of me not sending this bank document. But yeah, so I think some of us really do operate better the more full our lives are. And I have to be careful when I'm filling my life because of this addiction I have to feeling overwhelmed. And there's a very distinct difference to like really pursuing the things because I'm excited about them and it's my choice to pursue them, versus I'm kind of addicted to feeling overwhelmed and stressed. So let me add something else on to the top of this plate. And it hasn't been that feeling of stress, but I had to like have that come to Jesus with myself today, because it's all a choice, and it's all such a blessing. Like like we're buying our first investment property, like first world problems, right?
Right. I love the fact that you have in the book too, like no one's going to die. And it's
Yes.
like, it's the same. It's like, if you don't do something, no one's going to die. And if you do something like put your first post out or do out, no one's going to die. And I said, if no one's going to die, then you have to do it. I think that's literally like the line.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But
Love
I
that.
feel the same too. I'm like, oh my goodness, I have so much on. And when it's quiet, I get concerned. That's when I get more anxious, because I'm like, whoa, why am I not busy? Why am I not doing anything? This is making me more concerned. But then it is that realization of like, let's just like, how much gratitude can I have right now? I'm so grateful. Like, look at all of the amazing things that are happening. And even though that 2020 has been like a whirlwind, like we have to just to look out for the positives. So what is coming up for you next, and how can people find you?
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly when people will hear this, but one of the other blessings that came out of 2020 was I'm a huge believer in mentorship. I know you have put yourself in masterminds and probably invested just as much in yourself and your journey. So I talk about it all the time in my community. And then the question naturally is, well, then who do you recommend? We have a lot of like very beginning entrepreneurs in our community, or women who they're like, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I have this blog or I have this Etsy store. And it's like, wink, wink. Okay, you're not an entrepreneur. Got it. But a lot of people saying like, who do you recommend for me to work with? And I always found myself saying, well, this program is great to learn business strategy, but then you got to be working on your mindset. So come over here, and then you need a community to support you, because it's going to get uncomfortable, and like, you need to know you're not alone. And when all this happened this year, I found myself with extra space. I wasn't flying around and speaking. And I really try to pay attention to like when things keep showing up. I think that's how the universe communicates with us. Like, you get a couple of opportunities, and eventually that opportunity is going to go find someone else who's willing. And I had a couple of women come forward and say, I think this is really the year for me to launch my thing. And what do you recommend? And I realized I couldn't find it because I was supposed to create it. So we created this amazing, beautiful entry-level mentorship program. It's literally like the roadmap from 0 to 6 figures. It's called Six Figure School. By the time this comes out, it'll probably be closed because we closed the doors this weekend, but we'll be reopening it in spring and things like that. So really the best way just to connect is Instagram. You can find us on powerhouse_women. That's our community account. And then my personal Instagram is linked there too. And we say you're not meant to do business or life alone. So if you have a big idea on your heart, if this whole conversation made your armpit sweaty because that like you've been maybe playing at that 70%, not going all in, and you want some support around taking those first initial baby steps, we just share so much free information, free trainings all the time. And it's like legit the most supportive, incredible community of women you can find.
I love it. And I completely could tell that with your event, and our event was on the same day. So I'd have loved to have
yes!
I was like, you were like, here's my event. I'm like, oh my God, I really want to be there. But I was literally talking at the exactly same time that you guys. And you guys,
that was so cool.
Your outfit was like on point.
It was such a fun day. And just, it's been such a wild year, but I do believe, and I'll just kind of end by saying this, if you look for it, maybe you needed some things to be stripped away this year so you could find either the space to step into your own purpose, the time to step into it. Maybe you were redirected and realized that like your way to make change in the world is right in your own home with your children. But whatever that is, just really want to encourage you that that big idea was not given to you on accident. It's given to you for a reason. And it's not about you at the end of the day. So you can either just, keep denying it and eventually get to the point where maybe you're having those mental, emotional outbursts. Or what if? What could happen if you just take that first initial little step toward it? Who could you serve in the process?
I love that. What a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Lindsey, for joining me on this week's episode of It Takes Grit. I'm going to put all of your links below, so guys, make sure that you go and follow her, sign up to all of her things, and she will look after you. Guys, we will see you next week. Bye!
You're able to capitalize on the effort that you put in by capturing the details of the person who is looking at it, and being able to actually then have a powerful